Oh, hello, everybody who's just tuning in. I know folks are going to be watching this later on, and I'm thrilled that you're going to stop by. I am joined today by Kelly, and you're gonna love to hear from Kelly McClymer because she is an interesting person. She's a USA Today bestselling author, book coach, and I love this part, budding entrepreneur. I have a feeling that's not true. I think she knows more than she thinks she knows. But we're going to hear from Kelly in a moment. And what I've been doing is hosting these live interviews so I can talk to people like Kelly who have read my latest book and get their sort of reaction to the book, the contents, the strategies, the mindset. How are they implementing this in their business? Because I want you to know how you're going to implement these strategies and mindset in your business. So I thought it'd be helpful to hear from folks. So let's welcome Kelly. There you are. Excellent. Hi, Kelly.
Hi,
Thank
Robbie.
you, first of all, for joining my launch team. I know you're also a person who's been coming to my No More Bad Zoom virtual happy hours, and you posted a review. You're one of the 149 people that have actually taken that step of posting a review. I'm aiming for 200, so we'll see. We'll see. So I want to just get a top level. Your review talks about the idea that you say here, Robbie Samuels is one of those natural people, and I am not. So his book is a wonderful way for me to look behind the people person curtain. I love this, and see exactly how to engage an audience. He promises that you can start with a small list, and he doesn't lie. In fact, he offers a free resource to help you create your own list of people you hadn't even thought about as prospects for your next offer. And you go on to say other nice things. And the thing that I sort of highlighted in the title of this, that this is a book that you've put on your read every year list. So tell us a little bit about why this is on your read every year list.
Okay, so first I will confess that I totally uh, fit in with the just in case versus just in time learning. I am a stockpiler of education. And so I have a lot of marketing knowledge that I've never actually put into place or put into place correctly in the right strategies or abandoned. And so your book lays it all out there. It's really good step by step. And I can just go to that one stop shop. And it reminds me of everything I've learned and haven't done, and some of the things I
Right.
have.
Right. You've definitely taken action on some things, but in a nutshell, you're getting like a clear, like, oh, right, I'm reminded of all these things. Let's talk a little bit about that just in case versus just in time. This is a concept that I learned about originally from Pat Flynn, Smart Passive Income host. And he was taught this by Jason Van Orden, who is a business strategist and has since become a friend of mine. He actually was one of the endorsers for this book. And he talks about there is just in case learning, which is the learning you have when you're in the middle of something, like, and you're like, I just need to learn how to do this thing to help me further this one project, versus the just in case learning that a lot of us do, which is just consuming randomness, not knowing how it fits in. And in my book, I talk about there are times of the year to sort of overindulge on the just in case, have fun, but to really be focused, because it can be a little distracting. So do you feel like you now might be able to parse out a little bit, is it about a strategy around your schedule, like workflow? Like, what are you thinking about?
Well, I think education and self education is my comfort zone,
Mhm.
and doing and getting out there in front of people, which is why I kind of call you the people person, right? So maybe you're not as gregarious as you think you are, or I think you are, but you're not afraid to just talk to people, go meet people. And so that's my definition of a people person, just to be clear. And my definition of me is I'm a book person. I
Mm,
would rather read it than go pull it out of a person's brain, unless I'm one on one. I You want to be careful because I will suck your secrets out of you. But when I'm in a group, I just freeze up.
yeah,
So I educate.
yeah, yeah.
It's a
So
bad habit.
what are some other things? Are there any action steps that you've taken now that you've read the book? Things that you're now thinking about doing over the next, few weeks or months?
Well, I actually want to fill in. I want to fill your work in, um, because I think that's going to help me clarify. But I have been doing a lot of coaching on my own and learning to take steps. So what I want to do is some of what you're doing, which is just getting out there and talking to people and listening to what they're saying. And one of the things, the maximizing minor goals really struck home with me, because that's always my intent. And when I do it successfully, I'm very happy. And so, of course, as a book coach and a writer, it really made me smile when you said you were doing your podcast and you already had the book in the back of your mind. You knew it was going to be networking. And then you suddenly started changing your strategy to talk about and listen to what people were saying about a more niche down networking. And suddenly you could start building your content for your book right from the podcast. I thought that was
Yeah.
brilliant.
Yeah, right. So I knew that I needed some stories. Like I had the concepts that I knew I wanted to teach, but I needed the stories, because stories are what help people remember, right? So I asked my podcast guests for stories and then use those stories to help illustrate some of the points. And because my podcast guests were these, well-known, people in their industry, when I reached out to them to then endorse my first book, they endorsed the book, they helped promote the book. And so it added a lot of credibility very quickly, for what could have just been, I just want to publish a book. It became a book that really had some legs around it. And similarly with this book, that co-creation, like I knew that I wanted to do something. So I started hosting some master classes to get content. So yeah, that idea of co-creation is really strong for me. And I love that you're underscoring this. The book has a lot of stories, as I mentioned, and it sounds like you like the stories, but you also really appreciated the step by step. With it comes the Big Results Toolkit, which I know you downloaded. You haven't fully dived into it yet. How does it help you to have that kind of resource? Like, how do you think you'll end up using that?
So the reason I like the step by step is that I am a natural story consumer. I've been reading a lot of books since I was 5 years old, and I will consume a story, put it down, move on to the next thing, and I feel like I've mastered it if I'm not doing something. So those books that actually stop me and say, okay, you think you know this, now let's test and see how well you know it, or what you're going to do. For me, I always have to add something, my own twist to it. What twist are you going to add? And I like that the workbook lets me do that with handwriting, because that's frees my brain up. So 2 wins to me.
I love it. And this weekend, I'm actually going to be inviting people to a free training called the Big Results Training, where I'm going to be walking people over 6 hours, 2 hours a day for 3 days through the steps around some mindset and strategies that are in the book. Because I agree that having a workbook like that can be very helpful. I know, and I am a gregarious, outgoing extrovert. You nailed me on that. I've never been mistaken for anything else. um, I do that best when there's a timed, like you have to get it done in this time frame, like by this weekend, or we're now going to open our books together during a workshop. Like I need some sort of like time boundary around it to really like focus in, because it is kind of brain work. And I think I naturally gravitate towards talking to people, right? Different ways of solving problems. So this is really helpful because people have the book. Now they have a reason to go dive into the toolkit and then start to, see where they either see success or see some struggle as far as implementing those strategies to build a list. So I wanted to make sure people knew about that, and it's free. And it does lead to an offer. I'm not hiding that. I don't understand why people never mention that when you go to these free events. Of course, there's an offer. It may not be for you, and that's totally fine. I want people to just come because I think the content is super relevant. And on a meta level, I think people will get a sense of what it looks like to witness ethical selling, because I don't understand the like shenanigans some people do to get money out of other people's wallets. I want you to feel good about it. So what else? What were some other the highlights? Are there any other sections of the book that really kind of struck you as like this? Did you ever have a moment of like, oh my God, he's reading my mind, he's reading my journals, like that's totally me in a nutshell, or maybe someone you know?
It's a little bit hard to say, um, because I come from it, you have a very clear marketing mindset. And I come from the artsy fartsy world, if I could say that, where we're supposed to be like, well, I don't really expect to earn any money from it. I'll just be happy if it's published. I'll just be happy if one person reads it. And getting past that is really tough. So it's, in some ways, I just appreciate that you just lay it out there so clearly that it's hard to miss why you're doing the marketing. You're doing the marketing because you want people to get your message. You want the people who need to hear what you have to say to actually read the book and pick it up. And I don't think you can ever say that too much. And I think a really clear guide that also helps people implement is very much needed, because, as I said, I do a lot of just in case education, and I think I know everything, but then when it comes to doing it, it's not necessarily pretty. And this book, I feel like, is going to stop me from doing that. So when I get scared, I can just pick the book up and remind myself it all fits together.
I'm going to just drop a link in here. I'm realizing I had it ahead of time and it just went away on me. All right. Let's get this to scroll across the bottom if I can do this. Boom, look at that. Oh my gosh, this is me learning how to use this fanciness. So folks, the gift that I am offering folks is that you can go to smalllistbigresults.com, not just get the book, which is currently as an ebook for $1.99 because part of the launch, but you also can get the Big Results Toolkit at smalllistbigresults.com. And I was thinking about the step-by-step piece is because I do want people to take action. I mean, you're totally right. There's a moment when I was writing my first book when I realized, because writing part wasn't the part I loved, that I was like, oh, I don't want to just hit publish and just like that was it. I wanted people to read it and take action on it. And I feel it even more strongly for this book because people have such a profound response so far to it. And I've been running these pop-up masterminds. I've now done 8 of them, where people do the action in the Wake Up Your Network workbook and then come to this 2-hour session where I do some training and I answer questions and they have like a clarity. I just went today and like someone walked in and was like, oh, that's what I'm going to do now. Like, I love that light bulb moment. And in some ways, when you work with really big companies, it's hard to see the difference you make because it's like they're like a huge ship and you can't turn them but by degrees. When you work with a solopreneur and they have like a lightning bolt moment, you can actually see them turning like
that happens with writers too.
So neat, like that, like, oh, and that's why I really am committed to bring people on a journey, whether they find the investment in working with me directly makes sense right now or not. I feel like the only way they will ever get to the place where they think it's right is if they continue their own journey. Because have you created anything and then not had it sell right away? Did you ever have that moment of like, what? I know people need this. Like, is that something that's in your history?
Well, so I do a lot of fiction. I've never had that experience with nonfiction. My nonfiction usually sold right away, but it was very short. But with fiction, it took me 10 years. And this is actually a really good example. I was writing for the science fiction market back in the early 80s, and I was writing mom-centric short science fiction for magazines that catered to teens to 20s who were afraid of women. It was really not good marketing, but it didn't, it's just, I just wanted to be in the future, right? So I didn't think about the market at all. I just wrote the stories I wanted to write and sent them to the magazines, which was a terrible strategy, but I learned.
So there's a mismatch between the audience who'll be reading this and the audience you're writing it for. Yeah, I could see how that's like, they're like, they flip past it, they're like, yeah, it's not, no, thank
This
you.
is not a character I can relate to.
Yeah, no, it's not. Yeah. Even my book title changed as I was working on the book this year, because I originally was going to call it Small List, Big Ambition with a question mark. And I found out that women over 45 did not resonate with the word ambition. And I found women under 45 who did. So that was very interesting. And then I said, how about small list, big goals? And one woman wrote, I have enough goals, I need results. And like 4 other women jumped in the comment. They were like, yes, exactly that. I was like, oh, that's really helpful. And so now, of course, like that resonated. So now I'm using that language. I mean, that's part of why we do these research calls. What do you think the difference is between marketing fiction and nonfiction? Do you find that there's like building an audience is a similar, or is it a different practice for you?
So I actually think marketing nonfiction is easier if you write the book right. And I think your book actually demonstrates that, because you talk about how you did your testing with your, current audience who needs the book. And you wrap it up with what they want, big results, right? No, not big goals, no, not ambition, just results. And that you listen to them and you gave it to them. With fiction, we have stories and worlds we're building in our heads, and we're not always 100% sure anybody wants it until we publish it. And there are ways that we can test it, but they're not necessarily obvious ways. And of course, everybody just finishes the book first and then has to rewrite it a million times until they learn how to listen to their audience.
Oh my gosh, that's the kind of the thing I was thinking about earlier when I asked you the question, have you created something and then like tried to get it to sell? Is I think that's what a lot of us do, because we know whether it's the world we're creating in our minds or a solution we're creating, it's in our minds. Like that is actually kind of the problem, is that we aren't, connecting it with an audience first. Yeah, this is sort of the example of that. And I'd love to hear a little bit about your experience being on my book launch team, because it feels like that, you have a lot of experience working with books and with people who are writing books and trying to publish books and all of that. Have you been on anything that was like this? What was the experience for you being on the receiving end of all these, various messages?
So mostly my experience with book launches is just doing them myself based on somebody's structure and, of course, my own unique twists and what works and what doesn't, and watching other people do it either successfully or failing and kibitzing. But I've never been on one that was so determined. I mean, it's like your marketing know-how comes through because everything is connected that you do, and you're just bringing your audience into you. I mean, I know you use ethical marketing, but it's also a little seductive because it just feels clear. And, like you keep approaching and waiting for the zap of, I'm going to sell you $1 million product, but you never get it. You just get more information and reasonable, offers and a lot of clarity and fun. You do make things fun.
I do make things fun. There's this piece about asking. I've been having fun with questions at my Friday event, where I know about Zoom, where I ask people like different questions. And one of the questions we've asked recently, which is going to come up this weekend actually, what's stopping you from asking for help? And I think that a book launch is one of those moments where it feels like it's all about you and your book. And so asking people to help you feels like you're asking for yourself. And I'm like, I know the book's valuable. And if I can just like get out of my own way and get the message to other people, that they'll find it valuable. So my asking is in service of others. And that helps me keep asking. And I don't ask like for 7 things all at once. But you may have noticed that, once someone took an action of sending me their review in advance, then I gave them the information of how to post it on Amazon. Then they post on Amazon. Then I was like, hey, here's some social post stuff you can do. Like it just kind of like slowly, because people get really invested. They want to see this be successful. We did it. Like this is not an I statement at all. Like, the book actually did better than my first book by like leaps and bounds. It hit number 4201 for all Kindle books on Amazon.com, which I mean, I have screenshots because I was up there with some big league people that have 689 reviews. So I was like, hello. But that just didn't happen. That was a mixture of all the great advice I got about the content, the title, the subtitle, the book cover. Were you part of my book cover? That was also a really interesting test.
No, I missed that. I would have liked to see it because I've seen other people do it, and I think they do it all wrong, because they'll throw up a couple covers and say, which one do you like better? And, you're always going to get, a large percent like this one, a large percent like that one, and you still don't know what resonates. How did you do it?
So I had a designer that I really like, this guy, Adam, that I found. And if anyone's looking for a book cover designer, shoot me a note. I will send you his info. He's got an amazing Instagram, and found him on Readsy. And so he gave me like a dozen images, which were great. Like, so just to have such diversity. And I liked one of them. I was very drawn to. And one I kind of liked, but I'm not a fan of the word funnel. And so it looked like a funnel. And I said, I like these colors, but I'm not looking for it to be a funnel. And so he came up with what the book ended up being, which was sort of this, I'm going to call it a Wi-Fi symbol because that's people know what that looks like. And I put out the book cover that I liked that was blue, and it had a networking image. So there were women all in their little bubbles with lines and arrows connecting them, right? Because it's networking. And then I had the Wi-Fi image, which was vibrant colors and a white background. And I had the cover above and the cover below. And I said, here's my ideal reader. I described who it was. Here's what the book is about. What do you like? You know, and I've seen some people do where like it's the same cover, but one's blue and one's pink. Like such subtle differences. These were very different. And the response was really interesting because I had to pay attention to who was responding, right? Because you have to know who your ideal reader is. Because I told them who that was, they would say, I'm your ideal reader and here's what I like. Or I knew them. So I got to sort of look beyond that. Well, men really were drawn to the same one that I was, the blue one. And women just were like it wasn't just subtle, but like women were like, I like that one, like the white one with the Wi-Fi symbol. So it was like a really strong reaction. My assistant actually, when it was going by the first time we saw it, she was like, that one. And I was like, are you sure? We went back through, she's like, that one. So it's like, I'm not my ideal reader. That's the lesson. I'm not my ideal client. That's the lesson.
That's
I
a
had to be
really
like,
important
yeah.
lesson, especially in fiction, but even in nonfiction.
Yeah. And so that's how we ended up with that. And the subtitle was originally Leverage Your Network to Grow Your Business. But I realized it from the conversation around the cover design that the solution's networking, but it's not what people are looking for. They're not looking for that. So that was sort of like, oh, so then I can't lead with the solution. That's kind of antithetical to everything I'm teaching. No matter how much I like it, it's not what they're looking for. So what are they looking for? A solution to the problem they think they have. They think they have a small list, right? So it's you got to pay attention. The content can be great, but if no one buys it, it doesn't really help them. Yeah.
I think that's the thing I like about your book overall is that you know what they need. I mean, this is something I've been working on better. I mean, I have 40 years of experience. I can tell people instantly what to do, but in my experience, they don't do it. They have to be led to it, and by thinking they're going to get what they want or knowing they're going to get what they want. And you do that really, really well. You show how to do that, right? You break it down into the steps. I found that very valuable.
It is funny how it's common sense. There's like, I mean, I kind of say in the book, like, there's nothing revelatory here. It all will just make sense to you once you hear it, but it's not commonly practiced. And so it seems out of nowhere. It reminds me actually a lot of Profit First, which is Mike McCallis's book and concept around how you pay yourself in business. And when I read that book, it was very transformational for me. And I mean, to this day, it's how I run my business. But even when I didn't have a lot of money in my business, it was the first time I ever drew a profit. It was incredible. And yet nothing about the concept is hard. It's like, oh, you should take like just like a paycheck. You should take out your taxes, and you can take out your retirement. You should take out your like, oh, like before I spend all the rest of it. It feels like that in that sense. And so I'm hoping people are going to gravitate towards it. I have noticed, and I'm curious what you think about this, Kelly. Some people who are absolutely brand new to entrepreneurship, like they just got their coaching certificate, are resisting getting the book, are resisting taking action. And I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on people who don't. I mean, you've had some experience, so for you, it's like clicking because you've already done some learning around this. What are you thinking?
Oh, that's a really interesting question because I'm right there with some of those people um, where I see their resistance. And I think what I see with coaches is a lot what I see with fiction writers and memoir writers, where the business sense almost seems unethical, dirty, sleazy, scroungy. And so they're like, but I want to help people. Can't they just see it and feel it? And they don't really understand that they are in a business. It's really the long and short of it. They don't understand they are in a business, even if they say they do.
Yeah,
Because
even
you
if
know
they
how you
say,
said, it makes common sense to, pay yourself, to pay your taxes, to put money aside. I don't know many authors who do that when they're publishing their books. They just take it all as a paycheck. And then, well, I don't have any money to market. And it's like, well, you were supposed to take a percentage of what you got paid.
right, right. Think of it as a business. Yeah, I do wonder if it's hard for people to not, how do I, there are some pitfalls I think we have to live through before we decide to learn the lesson. I don't know whether it's sort of like, can you actually tell a 20-year-old what you know as a 50-year-old about life, money, relationships, and have it really sink in if they haven't lived? I wonder if it's like there's just not an open slot yet in their brain for this information because they haven't lived enough.
I don't think so. I don't think it's living enough, because my grandson is 9. He's a little advanced for his age,
Uh-huh.
but he already gets this.
He does.
He keeps trying to open businesses because he wants to make money.
Wow.
Totally understands.
I love it.
But but I still have to work with him, because you actually have to have business. You can't just open up a website and put up an idea. So he'll
Right.
get there, but he gets the money part
Hey,
really well.
this book could actually be read by someone even who's 9 years old, a budding entrepreneur of that
But I
age.
think a lot of people who go into coaching and fiction and maybe even nonfiction writing are a lot like people who go into social work, and
Mm,
they want to do good, and they're happy to do good and get paid a little bit because they just want to do the good. They don't recognize that if you do it as a business, you do even more good and you don't
yes.
burn yourself out.
Right. Because if you don't charge a reasonable amount of money, then you will limit yourself because you will burn out, and then you will really limit the number of people you can positively impact. Giving away is a limit to how much you can give away. And I appreciate that you're saying that as I keep offering things to people, I mean, I am giving a lot of value up front. And I do have an offer coming up this weekend. I want to just put this up here again. So this is the link if you want to join us this weekend for the big results. We decided to call it a training because we realized that that's actually what this is. I'm taking the concepts around mindset and strategies that are in the book, and I'm going to be walking through them. And I think there's 2 reasons to come. One is the content itself is very valuable to entrepreneurs. But for anyone who's planning to do a launch of their own of any kind, I think coming and just witnessing how we built it, because I've been part of lots of launches and I'm working with people around this, and we're trying to think of like, how do we do this in a way that feels right to us, that doesn't just follow every formula that's out there, because that's the part that it's like, I know it's formula. So this is going to be a lot of fun. We've been mapping this out now for a while. The book, in some ways, was really a stepping stone to coming to this, because I needed people to already be thinking about it. Because if they hadn't been thinking about it, then it won't sink in. Like, I think, you're ripe now for this, Kelly, to come to this training and like take lots of notes, actually print the toolkit, and like follow along as I coach and train through it. And we've got some fun prizes and other fun things coming up for store. I want to thank you, Kelly, for joining us, and let folks know who are here that I'm actually going to be back on in just a few minutes. I am interviewing Lisa McDonald. So in my first back-to-back lives, this is going to be so exciting. I love that you and Lisa have given me an opportunity to talk about the book in this medium. It's really fun for me. I haven't done live interviews before. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for your review, and I hope to see you this
Thank
weekend.
you.
All right. Bye-bye,
Bye.
everybody.